Grief. Although grief is largely associated with death, it is not only defined by that. It can also be found during the end of a relationship, a serious health issue, losing a job, and so on. Us, as fellow survivors, know grief all too well, as what we have in common is a sense of loss. Where there is loss, grief is never far behind. As grief signifies the end of something, how we perceive that will impact our experience of it. Although there are 7 stages of grief, there is no set formula on how we track through it. And as survivors, we could be any and everywhere at any given time, day, week, month, or even year. The stages defined are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, upward turn, reconstruction, ending in acceptance. You might begin with denial, stay there for months, and then move straight to acceptance. Or you may just be angry, move into denial, and end up being depressed for a year. There is no right way, there is no time frame, and there is no quick fix. It is painful, it is scary, it is devastating, it just is. Going through this, going through grief, feeling the pain of it, please acknowledge yourself for facing into it. Grief can take away the reason you get out of bed in the morning and destroy any happiness you ever felt. It tends to come in waves, at times threatening to descend and overwhelm you, at other times small, gentle surges just lying quietly at your feet. Wherever you are in the grief cycle, whatever you are feeling is perfect for right now. How do I know that? Because you're there. There is no easy answer, but you will find a way through this, your way. Although I have suffered much in my life, it took me a long time before I nailed the grieving. The truth is, it took me a while to recognise that not only was I not nailing it, I was also living in huge denial about it. By hiding it and pretending it wasn't there, just prolonged the pain I felt. With the help of a good therapist, I finally understood that by blocking it, I was just suffering more. I used to look at grief as something other people did, but not me. I was strong, you see, had built up quite the facade of coping, not well, but extraordinarily well. So, I had an image to maintain combined with not really knowing what I was feeling, which meant I didn't grieve. I guess because I didn't know what would happen if I did, and more, where it would end. I eventually accepted that grief was a huge part of coming to terms with and accepting the loss of people who had been disinterested in and undeserving of my love anyway. I eventually understood that grief was an emotion that needed to be dealt with and worked through, and that freed me enough to recognise I wasn't being held to ransom anymore. I was free to be sad and hurt and lonely whenever I needed to, which I did and sometimes still do. We all grieve in our own way, and one of the worst things you can do is to pretend you're fine when you're not. The way I manage it best is by facing it head on. I dive on in and emerge through covered in exhaustion, feeling sad, but a little less overwhelmed and a little more me. One of the toughest challenges when grieving is managing other people and their belief about what you should be doing. It makes it almost impossible to relate to them on any meaningful level. The hardest thing to do is to open up to them about just wanting to be sat with or listened to without judgment or their advice. So, Give yourself permission to not get out more or not go over there for dinner if you don't feel like it. The time will come when you do, but that is your choice. After all, it is your grief, not theirs. They love you and want to help you and don't know how. Hard as it is, you are the only one who can guide them through this. Some people avoid others while working through their grief because they feel huge expectations to manage the loss and cope well. Please don't ever do that. Be you, be true to you, and honour where you are at. I promise you will move through the grief cycle more easily.